Hello, welcome to my 1 month update video of learning Japanese. Sitting around 350-ish words that I could recognize. I'm mainly focusing on recognition, reading, and understanding. I'm not working on speaking or writing at the moment. Not super important because I believe that the best way to internalize stuff, kind of based off of what I've been reading and watching from other experienced language learners, is that internalizing stuff to the point where you can use it like in your native language is just exposure over time. So I don't get hung up on words and concepts when I'm face to face with them. I take them as they come, work with them for a little bit, move on, come back to it, which isn't really a new concept to me to understand. And that's why I think it's been super useful, because as you can see, like behind me, I play guitar, and like any concept with music, you don't just learn the more difficult concepts in one sitting. They usually soak in when you get constant exposure to them over time. So it's been pretty interesting to apply concepts that I learned from music to language. Some people say music is kind of a language in itself, so it's kind of cool to apply those concepts to language learning. So yeah, super important to not get hung up on stuff that seems super confusing to you. Just keep getting exposed to it, keep seeing it, working with it, and it's really just exposure over time. That's the big key thing. It's just exposure with the same stuff over and over again. That's how you internalize stuff to where it's useful, and then you can start production. So the 3 things that I'm using to help learn Japanese is Pimsleur, the app or website, whichever, Link or LingQ, however you want to read it, and Matt versus Japan's mass immersion approach, which works for any language, not just Japanese. So just to go over Pimsleur, I'm not using Pimsleur exactly as they intended it, but Pimsleur has 30 lessons for each level, and there's 5 levels of Japanese. I don't know if there's more on other languages, but each lesson is 30 minutes long, and they usually get you to repeat stuff. But with Japanese being a level 5 language for English native speakers, not wanting to pick up bad habits, I usually don't repeat anything that they say. I just listen or mumble it to myself. If you were learning a Romance language and you're a native English speaker, I would say start talking immediately. Just based off of some stuff that I've seen, there's not really any reason to not start talking with Romance languages, for the most part. Still something you need to worry about, picking up bad speaking habits. But I'm mostly just using it as one of my notes here. It says, great to have structured guidance to get your first foothold in the language, because without something guided, it can be kind of difficult to get your bearings with the language, because just not knowing where to start. So having something like Pimsleur is great, because like I just said, it helps you get your first foothold in the language. They have a structured way of introducing vocabulary and concepts to you, which I really like. I'm not sure how far it will go at the end of the 5 months, but as of right now, after a month of using it, I really like the way they go about introducing vocab and concepts without beating you over the head with the rules. They introduce you some vocab and some concepts, and then you kind of rework them in a way, and so it's like exposure over time with the concept, and the just constant reworking of vocab that you already have, like saying I speak Japanese, I speak a little bit Japanese, I don't speak. They just they work that out, and you're in real time listening to native speakers say all these variations of vocabulary and concepts, and it's really helps internalize grammatical structures without having to hit the books and learn grammar. I'm picking up on a lot of stuff, and they'll mention stuff kind of in passing, but they don't harp on it. They're just like, keep listening to these people talk. You say it, they say it, and it's pretty cool. And like I said, I like the fact that it's guiding you with vocab, which is great because it's kind of like for the first few months you're probably just sitting there thinking, like, what word should I learn? So it's nice to have something structured that's just giving you vocabulary and concepts, because like jumping into a language is getting dunked headfirst in the middle of the ocean and trying to get your head above water and then figure out what to do after that. So it can feel that way. So having something like that is great. I think it's the best language, one of the better language learning apps, because it's not slow. You're getting conversations right off the rip. From lesson one, you're listening to full conversations and getting full sentences. They don't spoon feed you words. Well, sometimes, but they give you a word to work into a sentence that you already know. But it's not slow. It's definitely super fast paced, and there's times where actually I pretty much re-listen to every single lesson twice in a day, because I do have a little bit of time at my job to re-listen to lessons. So yeah, it can be a bit fast paced, but as long as you're paying attention, should be able to get most of the concepts. Really helps stuff stick. Another tip about Pimsleur too is I noticed that when I'm walking around and my subconscious mind is handling some kind of motor function, like walking at a slow pace, I seem to be able to focus really more on audio. So I'm going to try that in the coming months here, trying that out more. Maybe go for a walk in the morning when I'm listening to it in the morning. So maybe that's something that you could try. Moving on to LingQ. LingQ was definitely rocky starting out, but after working with it for a few weeks now, it's extremely useful to be able to read the language with the way they have it set up, because they have the characters, Romanji, audio. It's like all there in one app. Sometimes the app is a little janky, not gonna lie, but the real meat and potatoes of what LingQ is, with what it does, it's very useful. Being able to keep track of words that you've seen before and being able to click on them, see their meaning, and then click on a thing that says I know this word, and so it's very interesting. And the thing is with LingQ, their whole thing is like hinging on creating new links every day, so getting exposed to new words every day, which is great. But I think the real magic with LingQ is rereading stuff that you're already familiar with, whether it's content that you've imported yourself or the content that's on the app. The real magic is rereading, because you're already familiar with it, you already know what the story is, and it's like rewatching a movie, and you recognize more stuff the more times you watch a movie. And that's what I think is real interesting about LingQ. And let's see. Yeah, so being able to reread stuff and slowly watch words go from I've seen them before to, oh, I know this word now, I know what it means. And already knowing what you're reading, what it's about, also helps a lot, because you can put stuff together contextually. And then when you start putting stuff together contextually, it makes it really easy to just start remembering words, because then you start remembering them from a story, and it all just like compounds into your memory. So definitely the most interesting thing about LingQ is using it to keep rereading stuff, reading it the first time, creating links with the new words, and then coming back and rereading it the next day or something, or however you want to schedule it, is the real magic of LingQ. Another thing I've been using, the mass immersion approach. I'm not following it to a T, but when I'm not using Pimsleur or LingQ, which only takes up so long in a day, I'm just immersing myself in Japanese language. To just talk about immersion real quick though, if you're not willing to engage with your target language that you're trying to learn for hours in a day, I don't think there's a point in learning a language if you're not interested in listening to it and engaging with content in that language. I don't know what to tell you. You probably shouldn't be learning a language, because that's the real joy of language learning, is being able to engage in that language and content. So like if you can't be bothered to listen to it even though you don't know what it means, and embracing ambiguity with it, stop. I know it's negative, but that's, you gotta get your kind of head straight with when it comes to that, because the immersion aspect is incredibly important, because that's where you start to get your listening comprehension, listening to native speakers talk, their cadence, and pretty much everything that there is about speaking is super important. So, watching anything from TV shows to anime, I already did all of that. So, and I listen to Japanese music, so that's not really an issue for me when it comes to Japanese at all, because it's just something I was already doing, but now I'm actually trying to learn the language. So, with immersion, it's pretty simple. Just you're watching stuff, maybe look up a word every once in a while that you keep hearing it, and you're like, what does that mean? Look it up. I can tell you, it's becoming a lot easier for me to pick out words that I know as they're being said in podcasts or TV shows or whatever, just through the exposure to it. So just listen and watch as much as possible. Personally, what I like to do is watch something without subtitles and then rewatch it with English subtitles to see if I kind of got the general concept of the TV show, because a lot of the TV shows I watch are super enjoyable, and I kind of don't want to watch a whole season of a show and not know what the hell happened. So I like to rewatch it with English subtitles just to make sure I'm still following the story. But yeah, immersion's super important. Just listening to it as much as you possibly can in your free time. And there's little tricks and things you can do to, find these little moments during the day where you can listen. But that's a whole other video on itself. So yeah, basically to kind of sum up here, just really in the beginning, focus on recognition, being able to listen to stuff and recognize what's being said and understand it. I think if you put more of your mental energy towards listening and reading, you're gonna have more success in the beginning. You're gonna be able to take on more concepts and more words, and recognize more stuff. And the stuff that you recognize, the more you recognize something over time, the more you just internalize it and you really know it, without having to really sit there and try to memorize something. So trying to memorize vocabulary is dumb. Just keep getting exposed to it and seeing it, rereading something. Don't sit there and try to memorize words. I don't try to memorize words at all, and my vocabulary seems to be growing on a daily basis. But I just engage with the material that those words are in, whether it's taking the test on Pimsleur and doing that, but I don't sit there and just read a vocabulary list and try to memorize it. I just let it wash over me, and then eventually you grasp it. So that's pretty much what I've been doing. Probably make another video in another month to see where I'm at. But I don't know. Stick around, see what else I got. Oh, I also forgot to mention that I've learned hiragana and katakana and all the different versions of that. Super important to learn that with Japanese, and then you work your way to kanji. I haven't quite started kanji yet. Been kind of dabbling with that. I just want to make sure I have hiragana and katakana down very well before I move on to kanji. As far as tips for hiragana and katakana, I just kind of used a brute force method with an app where I was just having the characters just getting beamed in my face and me just trying to figure out the definition. And you can use mnemonics. I like to kind of just use a combination of brute force, just remembering something at face value, mnemonics, and like my knee-jerk reaction to seeing a character for the first time is usually very potent way to remember something. Like for so and ya, like I just remembered my knee-jerk reaction being yeah, and that's all it took for me to like memorize that character, was me to say that goofy thing when I saw the character. Or for so, it was just like so. It just so yeah, that's it.